All right, everybody, here we are, Business Roundtable podcast with a couple returning guests I'm super excited about. And I will say authors as well, because our topic tonight is going to be how you can unlock business growth through the power of writing a book. And so I'm super excited to have Bill Hatch back. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have Maurice W. Evans back. Welcome, Mo.
Hey, hey, hey. Glad to
So
be here.
we're glad to have you both back. Again, my name David Carr of Steward Your Business. One of the glad to have you guys here on the Business Roundtable podcast. So I thought this would be a great topic as we're discussing ways that we could uh, share with you some helpful tips, guidance as a business owner, as a leader, even how you grow your business, how you grow your practice. And so earlier this year, Mo, you and I actually are collaborating on a book. It'll be out later this year. I'm super excited. And
Yes, yes,
right, I
yes.
never even thought about that till I was working with Mo and going through Superpower University with him and Empoweringality. And so, Mo, I know you've had a lot of experience there. So maybe just to get us started, Mo, um, and why is it important? What should we consider like why it's important writing a book? You suggested this to me, and I'm building my coaching practice and things like that. But why is that important for business growth?
That's a great question. And I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. It's not important at all. Unless, of course, you want to be seen as an authority in your industry,
Mm,
right?
yep.
Authority. When you
Hmm.
author a book, you are seen as the authority.
Hmm.
And I think what happens is people kind of miss the great benefits of being the authority, of having this platform, because they get caught up on confusing writing and authoring a book,
Hmm.
right? Especially our age, what we picture is, it's 2 a.m. in the morning and it's dark all except for a little desk lamp shining on this typewriter, and somebody is and there's a cigarette hanging out of their mouth, and the coffee is stale, and that's what they picture, right? And like, I don't want to write a whole book.
Hmm.
But if we could get past that and understand that an author does not necessarily have to be the one doing the writing, right?
Hmm.
You can pay somebody, you can transcribe, you can have somebody write what you speak, or we can, if you're a pastor, we can take your sermon, audio or video, and transcribe those. If you are a professional speaker, we can take a transcription of your talk. If you are a coach, we can take a transcription of your session, and then we can turn that into a book for you. You don't have to technically write the book. If we can get past that, then it's easy to see the benefits. Well, hey, now I got this amazing brochure, this amazing business card that I can slap on the table, that I can say, oh, here's the book that I wrote. By the way,
Hmm.
it's a #1 best-selling book, right? That's how much more impactful is that
Hmm.
than just simply saying I'm XYZ expert. Yeah, you and everybody else.
Right.
But everybody else is not a #1 best-selling author on this topic, are they?
No. No. Yeah. Well, you hit two things I heard. Is book is being an author authority, and with that, like you said, and there's credibility there. You've actually done the work. You've been that you like you said, you maybe have transcribed that. You've done this. You're putting it all together, and so you're showing that how you're distinguishing yourself in the industry, the specific industry. That a lot of people don't do. People don't spend the time to do that. So you're actually saying you're setting yourself apart is what I hear, Mo.
It allows you to generate leads. It allows you to attract leads. It allows you to convert leads. It allows you to get press and publicity. It allows you to open doors. It does so much that no other form of collateral material has the same level of impact. As a consultant, you're talking to someone in the AEC industry, and they are a large firm with a large government contract, and they're doing some environmental work, and you want to go in and help them with their leadership and help them amplify the leadership within their organization. You can do all the things to get their attention, but if you can get a book in the hands of the decision maker, you, in their eyes, no longer look like everyone else who handed them a business card, everyone else who made a phone call, everyone else who hit them up on LinkedIn, everyone. There's a distinction. You're head and shoulders above them now, especially when you combine that with other authority pieces. Like, I've also been featured in ABC, NBC, CBS. I've been seen in these places. I have these credentials. It's a form of social proof. And people think testimonials are the only social proof, but they're not.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bill, as you're hearing this and writing your book, kind of give us a little bit of your journey. Like, what inspired you to write your book? As you're hearing Mo share his.
And those who can't see right now, Bill has a cup of coffee and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and because he's literally writing the book right now. So I know he's very grateful that I told him he doesn't have to do that, right, Bill?
I am a non-smoker, so yeah, so no cigarette, but I definitely know the stale coffee. But what inspired me was so many different aspects to talk about, as far as the inspiration to do what. You know, there's the inspiration to write, there's the inspiration to write on the particular subject matter, and but as far as writing a book, it really has to do with becoming the authority in the subject, because if you're in print, especially if you're on paper, if somebody took the time to put you down on paper, there must be something important about you. And I knew that the ideas I have are important enough to print. As far as what inspired me to write on this particular subject, it was a short book that I read for the introductory class to my graduate studies, but the book was called "Be a Leader for God's Sake." And depending on how you say it, it can be taken in a couple different ways. But
right.
But it's definitely written from the for God's sake, be a leader.
Kind
of perspective, the Christian perspective. But yeah, and so I came up with this plan, with this idea for something I'm calling ethical leadership, and I am writing what will probably end up being a series of books.
Yes.
I did the headers first so I could be organized and have goals to, okay, I can get through this many today, and I need to write about this one, and have an idea of how long it was going to take me to do it and to finish it, and it's going to end up being like 2,500 pages, so it's going to be 10 books. So it's going to be a series of 10 books, which is okay because there's basically 10 topics in the series. There's the introductory book, which is book number 1, and that'll have the basics of everything. And if that's as far as people want to go, that's as far as they'll have to go. But if they want more information about one of the top subjects in the book, then there will be other books, and that they'll be able to pick up and go, oh, okay, I needed to know more about that.
When you struck a couple ideas as you're talking, Bill, when you're writing these books, I think some of it is obviously we're creating, like you said, Bo, this authority or credibility. Also, I think that there's something you're creating a legacy, Bill, or something. It sounds to me like you're creating something that you want to share beyond yourself for those to come and read, and in essence too, you're creating intellectual property. Bill's take on you're inspired, right, by this other book series. So now it's Bill's take on this, right? So you're actually creating your own IP, your intellectual property that you can, like you said, Mo, kind of lay it down and say, look, I created this. This is unique and different from anything else. It's my voice. It's me putting this together. And you're differentiating yourself from, other authors out there, other leaders, Bill, right?
Yeah. This is my take on things. This is the process I think you should go through as a leader. And I know it, and I've written it down, and now I'm going to share it.
Yeah.
Because my plan is to actually use this book as a launching point for a mastermind, and for people who want to learn more about leadership. And I think that kind of learning model is just about the best kind of learning model there is. Where you're basically teaching yourself. But you have the support and leadership of someone else.
Right. So I want to come back to you, Mo, because you talked a little bit about this at the beginning about, okay, a lot of people really get overwhelmed. You just painted this picture of the stale coffee and the cigarette and working on this. But if we see the value of being that authority in the industry, having that credibility, creating that brand, we see that, but I think sometimes still people feel like how to get started. So Bill, you talked about how you came out and outlined the headers, some of these different topics. And Mo, you gave me some great tools early on to kind of think about, we were brainstorming, but what would you give some practical steps here just to begin thinking about writing a book, choosing that topic or whatnot that aligns with the business goals? Mo, what would you do for, if somebody's like, I don't know, I've never written a book. Where do I start? What do I look at? What do I consider?
Yeah, great question. And I think that Bill kind of gave a great example of that. He said that, he doesn't smoke. So that simplifies it, right? So now it's just coffee. Now it's just the typewriter. Now it's just right. So the more you can get rid of those distractions. Wait, no, that's not what I was going to say. What was I going to say? What did you say? Oh, Bill said, no, what Bill actually said was very poignant was the fact that he is focused on something that is unique and proprietary to him. When we start talking about using this as a brand distinctive, when we start using this as a way to express our proprietary processes, when we start using this to share our principles and our order of operations and all of these kinds of things, now this intellectual property is hyper focused. And I think that's one of the most important things, is having that focus. I think Bill decided to focus, and all of a sudden he's got 10 books. And it's like, wait, I was trying to write one book and I ended up with 10. David, you and I are putting out a frequently asked questions book on leadership, and we've already discussed how easily it would be to turn this into a series of books, but they all would have this same affinity. They all would be along the same track. And I think that's what people want to look at, is the bigger vision of how does this integrate with their business? What is the purpose of this book? Yes, it is a wonderful marketing tool, but yeah, it immortalizes your thoughts. It becomes a part of your legacy. Yes, it solidifies. So it solidifies your thought leadership, so that people can gather around and mastermind around. Hey, did you read Bill Hatch's book on leadership? Yeah. Well, let's get together. Let's do a mastermind. Let's see how we can work through some of these things that he has presented and posited to us. I think that's important, that people not get caught up on the mechanics. Again, being an author rather than being a writer. There's all kinds of tools. I've helped 30, 40 people become #1 international best-selling authors. And I can tell you that we don't focus on the writing of the book. We focus on, what is it that you're trying to express? Are we talking about this specific system that you have? Are we talking about this approach that you have? Is it this thought that you have? Is it sharing the experience? And is this an anecdotal example of the principles that people are already aware of, but you're contextualizing them for your particular environment? That's why I say a pastor already has books written in the fact that he's preaching a book every 1, 2, 3 Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Every coach that it has sessions, group and one-on-one sessions, has books already written if they're recording their sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Every public professional speaker, all of their talks, those are all books. We have the content already. It's a matter of giving it to somebody who can organize it for you. And that doesn't have to be you. If you're good at gathering content and research and organizing it, by all means, do that. But a lot of people, they say, yeah, I've been working on my book for the last 3-4 years. Listen, don't try and make your, what is it? Your magnus opus magnum.
Yeah.
Don't
Magnum
try
opus.
and make, don't try and make, the end all be all. This is your memoirs, and just get the portion of it out. Just get some of it out. Guess what? You're going to grow and evolve. So the longer it takes, I know people that have been working on books for over a decade. The problem is they're growing in their understanding as they're writing. So it's a game that they'll never finish the book. It will never be finished. Oh, because they want to give all the information. Well, just whet their appetite. Just give them, part 1, and then come out with part 2. Give them volume 1.
Right.
If you really want to make money, then you're gonna do what they learned a long time ago, and you're gonna serialize it, and you're gonna sell it chapter by chapter. That's what comic books were, graphic novels were. They were like, why are we trying to make $3 on a book when we could sell each chapter for 50 cents a piece? All right, well, let's do that. And so now you have these little serialized versions. You got to get 20 of those, 30 of those before you get to it. Now let's make it 100 of them and put pictures in between. So it really takes a long time. We make comic books we're making comic books for Powernality. So that's why I'm kind of trolling myself here. Right. So, but get it out there, get something out there, get the ball rolling. Right. And then you can always go back. A great book that I recommend to entrepreneurs all the time is I have like 7 books, my top 7 books for all entrepreneurs. And this is in the top 7. It's The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Well, I read the original E-Myth back in 1994, and it was different. It was very much harder read. Do you have it?
Yeah, I think I have it somewhere here on my bookshelf. I'll have to look and see if I can pop it out.
It's blue and white, most likely.
Yeah,
But I would wager that you probably have revisited. Yes, I knew it. See, you have a great version. Revisited has Sarah in it, where he's telling the story from the viewpoint of Sarah. Well, when I had to read it, learning how to be a business consultant in 1994, there was no Sarah. It was just the straight data. So imagine that book without Sarah. But he revisited that book. But there's also many E-Myth versions out there. And they're topical, they're contextualized, right? So he started with the E-Myth, but guess what? He had to go back and revisit it. He made it better.
Yep.
So put your book out there, and guess what? If in a couple years you're like, man, my book, I'm not really happy with that. Okay. Put out a revised, put out a revisited, put out an updated, put out the new 2026 edition, right? Because things change. Any book that was written prior to COVID, unless it is, and my top 7 books are timeless, but like E-Myth is timeless. But a lot of books are very zeitgeist oriented. So as things change, technology, as the world evolves, they kind of outdate themselves because they're not talking about principles and methodologies. So if your book gets outdated, that's okay. Give it the 2026 edition, the 2030 edition. Give it now. Right? You know how many books had to do a post-COVID edition? How many had to do a social media edition? Because social media is new to business and marketing and media, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I think you're taking me back to my college days, Mo, because I remember college, right? You could never buy the previous edition. They're like, oh, we've come up with a new version. Like you want to buy a used book? They're like, nah, you can't buy the used version. You got to buy the new version. I'm like, what? Isn't
And the
that
new
most
ones
of
were
the
the
same?
really expensive ones we couldn't afford, but I need the used one.
Just,
So you
nope.
so the
With all new
smart
page
authors
numbers.
made sure they put out one every 3 years or so, so new classes couldn't get from the previous graduating cohort, right? Isn't that how that works?
Yep.
Did they change anything?
Who
They gave
knows?
new introduction. All the same information.
Oh man. So I want to go to Bill now. Bill, you kind of he's most kind of affirm what you're already starting to do. You've broken it up and you've got kind of your first introduction. Does that empower you to like get that one out? Like, hey man, I got to get this sucker out now.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting inspired.
Because I think sometimes we get in our own way. I know I do, and I think this is important. What you brought up, Mo, for me, anyways. We've talked about powerality in the past and knowing kind of where your strengths are. And somebody that's like, we'll use a calculator, loves all the processes and the systems and getting everything all stepped up and checking the boxes and all that stuff. But knowing that I'm more of this creative type and just open to different ways of things, of being this energizer. So knowing where your strengths are and um, I think it's really important, Mo. You brought some good points of where do you bring people in to help you along the way. I like the idea of like you could hire. I mean, how many people you hear about ghostwriters all the time? They're taking, like you said, Mo, the information, you give them the idea, and you're like, hey, kind of write this, and then I'll finish it, if you will. I'll bless it, And so I think, and like you said too, I think Mo is important as things are changing, we're changing. That's what I'm hearing is the relevancy, may change. So we don't want to wait too. I mean, there's some things that can still be relevant. I mean, I've read like How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's been around for a long time. But what you said, Mo, is it's been updated and revised. They added new stories, new information, new insights. So, you're gonna have to go back, like you said, COVID or otherwise. So
How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, if they don't update that, then it's like, yeah, you go down to the water cooler, see, and that's what you do when you want to
Telegram.
Yeah, send them a telegram. That's the way you get to them. See, like
the principles are still effective. It's just, but the relevancy of today, right?
I'll give you a good example. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just going to say it's like all the updated versions of The Art of War, Sun Tzu. I mean, that'd be even worse if they hadn't updated any of that. We'd be talking about things that happened 2,000 years ago.
Right.
Right. I don't know. Who's updating The Art of War? Nobody. Sun Tzu did a bang up job of that. I don't know if
Well,
who tried to update it? I want to find out about this. What is going on here? Have a Legion of Ronin handle this person.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we're looking at, I do want to come back, Mo. So when we're looking at this, and Bill, you've talked about kind of getting these set out. Talk about, Mo, a little bit about realistic timelines or goals here a little bit more. I mean, I thought it was going to be bigger. You gave me an hour. I listened to a little presentation that you had recorded previously, and then you walked me through the whole process of how to write a book. It definitely wasn't as daunting. I thought it was going to be much more daunting, and just like, hey, what are some realistic timelines and goals, particularly if you've got hiring somebody to help you, Mo, because some people, like you said, we're working 10 years. I don't think that's realistic. What do you think is realistic in today's age to actually put together a book?
Well, that is going to, if you had asked me that question last year, it would even be a different answer. It really depends on the resources of the individual and what approach they want to take. So what we're really talking about here are either self-publishing or vanity publishing. We do vanity publishing, which is all about using it for authority rather than for sales. So we want people to become a number one, if not number one, definitely a top 10 bestseller. want it to be international bestseller. We want them to be featured in major news media. We want them to be featured on podcasts. So that's what we focus on when we work with people doing that. When it comes to self-publishing, well, you got to do all of the pieces of it. So you've got to get it written, whether you write it or you hire somebody to write it. You have to have it edited, whether you edit it or hire somebody to edit it. You have to have it proofed, whether you proof it or have somebody else proof it. You have to have it laid out because, you know, we take for granted that this is the information on page 1 of the book and this is on page 2. But somebody has to go in and desktop publish and put all of the words on there, and they've got to address the spacing and the tracking and the kerning and the distance between each line, the distance between each letter, the margins. You know, a lot of self-published books that are physical books, sometimes they make an error and they don't understand to put extra margin in the middle. So when you open the book, you know, the text is going down in there. So you're really bending the book open and you're trying to look down in the little cracks and crevice and nook and cranny down there in the book. You can't, it's like, why are the letters down there? So, you know, these are things that you have to be cognizant of. If there's going to be a number on each page, somebody has to place that number on each page. So, and there are tools out there, there's templates out there, there's guides out there, there's people you can hire who will do that. You want to get an ISBN number. So you if you want, you're going to want to register so that it can get into the libraries and be ordered by bookstores. And so there's some back end things that have to be done, and that none of that counts the marketing of the book. And so now it's like, oh, Mo, now it's sounding overwhelming again. Well, again, that's why, you know, you don't want to try and be the one-man band. You want to try and surround yourself with a team of people who are going to support and do this. And there's a ton of professionals out there who can do these things. And now the X factor now is AI, which can do a lot of this really quickly. So I used to use something called Grammarly, but I no longer use Grammarly. Now I use one of their competitors that does the same thing, but you know, I've kind of switched teams on them. I was with Grammarly for years. But I switched from them, and it's something called Pro Writing Aid. And so I have a Pro Writing Aid account, and it does all the same things, right? So it will go through and it will show you, hey, this is a grammatical error, but it'll also give you suggestions. You might want to change this to for or in rather than what you're saying. They'll actually give you another way to say the entire sentence if you would like. This dramatically speeds up the proofing process of your book. AI has even gone farther with things like ChatGPT, where you might want to go in, and so you're not exactly sure how to organize your thoughts. So you do what we call a brain dump, and just word vomit all your thoughts out. Get them all out. It doesn't matter the order. It doesn't matter if they make sense. ChatGPT will make sense of it, and then you say, okay, give this to me in an order that is, you know, chronological, historical, that is something that tells a story, is something that is persuasive, and it will reorganize and give you bullet points and an outline and say, oh, talk about this first, talk about this second, talk about this third, and it'll give you an outline to follow from your notes, from your concepts. This rapidly speeds things up. You can use ChatGPT to go in and you can post in your writing, which your very first draft is always garbage if you ever write anything, because it's designed to just get it out. You're not paying attention, or you're not supposed to, because it's using a different part of your brain. You want to just get into that state of flow and get it out. And then you tell Chat, okay, now put this together and make my sentences grammatically correct. And it'll keep them identically the same, but it'll just make it grammatically correct. You speeded your process. You cut your time down dramatically. And so there's outlines. So we have ways to do, like you and I are doing an FAQ book that makes it really simple to do. We've got ISRI method. There's so many methods that we have that shows a person, okay, let's get 10 chapters out, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. I've shown you for Powernality, David, our way to take one article and turn it into a year's worth of articles in regards to powerality, right? Because we've looked at that process and say, okay, talk about it in this context. Now talk about it in this time. Now look at this viewpoint. Now this perspective. And so we have a lot of systems and tools like that. So it's up to the person. You can publish a book within 30 days. That is not unreasonable. For a typical person, you're doing it on the side, you know, you're working every day, you got things going on. Okay, 3 to 6 months should be no problem to get your book out. If it's taking you a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're down in the weeds. And it's not necessary to get the book out. If so, for instance, Bill, I'm not even going to ask you, but I know you said 10 books, right? So if you're doing 10 books, right, and it's taking you a long time and you're now on year 5 with this, brother, go ahead and put out the first book, because those other 9 books are not going anywhere. You can go and, you know, get the first book tied up, because the information for the first book still has to go out. It still has to be first. There's still only so much that the first book, the introduction, can be anyway. So get that out. And then take, while that's building and growing momentum, now it can go out. I just looked at Amazon for Michael Gerber, right? For the E-Myth. So the original E-Myth, the E-Myth, why most businesses don't work and what to do about it. But there's the E-Myth Revisited, right? But he also has something called Beyond the E-Myth. And he's got the E-Myth Enterprise. But then he's got E-Myth Mastery. That's all just on the E-Myth. But that's not it. There's like 30 other books. There's the E-Myth Contractor, the E-Myth Attorney, the E-Myth CFO, Chief Financial Officer, Accountant, E-Myth Physician, E-Myth Manager, E-Myth Pest Control Business, E-Myth Real Estate Investor, E-Myth Dentist. So there's all of Landscape Contractor, all of these E-Myth. It's all still the same thing. So really, instead of taking one book and making it 10 books long, he's really still on the first book and just contextualizing that. So now, Bill, if you have 30 iterations of each book, you actually already have 300 books.
Right.
So you can get them out there at your pace. But out there, get the first one out. Let that do some work. Let that build some buzz, so people are excited about the very next one that you put out.
Yeah, like, you know, it's already coming. So I see that in definitely series, Mo, where they already tell you the upcoming book. Like, you read to the end of the book, and this one is coming up in whatever.
And they already wrote it. They already wrote it, and they already have a date that they're putting it out. They have a deadline, and they're going to get it out there. So that anticipation is there. And so then what happens is, you know, if you're a fiction writer, then put out 3 books at a time. Because now people will bundle and buy. People will buy part 1, part 2, part 3, because they like the series and they're interested in what's happening. They want to know what's happening next. Right? So there's a lot to the business of books, but you don't have to be an expert in the business of books. Just get your book, get it out there. I just there's a guy, I was in a little networking group or whatever, actually just left it. And he's in this group, and he says, "Hey guys, I just put out a book. If you guys can help me with this." Okay. So I'm like, sure, no problem. I'll support, right? The book was $3.99. Went on Amazon. I got the book. This book is 40 pages. 39 pages. The last page is like a barcode copyright. Page 37 and 38 is notes. 36, 37, 38 is notes. 35 just has the top third talking about some audiobooks. Like half of this is large text, double spaced. This is, I would wager this is less than 3,000 words. This is a feature length article in a magazine. It's it's 8, 9, 10 chapters. 10 chapters. So, and the book is it's a shorty. So it's like 8 by 5.5. It's thin. It's a 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch thick.
Wow.
But
yeah.
he pushed it to all of the groups and things, and we helped him become a #1 bestseller on Amazon with a physical book, no digital copy. You had to get the physical, $3.99. I'm not going to say the name of the book or the name because it sounds like I'm disparaging him, and I'm not. But what I am saying is that he did it. He got the book out, and now this isn't his first book or his first rodeo, so he knew what he was doing with this. But the point is, he got the book out. It's a bestseller. It's a #1 bestseller on Amazon. It's a physical book. So now he gets to say, hey, my #1 best-selling book. Okay. There's not a lot of information in here. There's pictures on everything. I mean, when you look at this, it's like he really spread this thin. He really spread this. So do it. Get something out. That's what I was telling with you, David, right? We're going to just we're going to do FAQ book. We're going to make it simple. We're going to get it done quickly. In a few months, we'll be out and we're ready to rock and roll. We're not going to spend a lot of time trying to create a masterpiece. Particularly since 70% of people never finish the book that they start.
Right.
40% of people buy books and never read them. We have that ego, right? We think you have to read every single word because I poured over the order of the words, the length of the sentences, the length of the paragraphs, the chat, it becomes our own sacred texts to us. Everybody else's, their life's not going to end if they don't read it. Did you read the book? Yeah, I started it. Okay, let me know when you finish reading it. And they don't get back to it. How many times do we not get back to a book we started?
Right.
How many times did we buy a book that we fully intended to read and we just didn't read it? It's going to happen. It's okay. Because you set yourself head and shoulders above the rest, one, by having a book. And then if you do the right thing and you turn it into a bestseller, night and day difference in how you are perceived in your industry.
Right. So I got a question here. I'll come to you first, Bill, then come back to Mo. So I like this, and I think you made a good case, Mo, for breaking this down between, trying to self-publish and what's the type of book that you're trying to put out there. What has been some things that you've seen, Bill, as a leadership guide, expert in your field, that attracted you to somebody else that has written a book, and you've seen that success story of somebody. Well, actually, we had Curtis on. Curtis couldn't make it tonight, but Curtis has been in our group, right? He's written books. He's in his mergers and acquisitions firm, and he's talked about certain things being here on the podcast. But what are others that you've seen, Bill, in your experience, where, like Mo has given examples of somebody that has actually done that and written the book, and that you're like, man, I got to pick up that book. They've kind of drawn you in.
Yeah. Well, I've had a few people, more than a few people on my podcast on Not Quite After Midnight, of people who have written their books. And I've picked up several of them and fully intend to read each and every one of them.
Well, they came onto your podcast too because they've written a book, right? They're a recognized expert, right?
Yeah. And they're out there promoting their book and their expertise, and a lot of these people, if they hadn't written a book, there'd be no real reason to have them on the podcast. Because it's like, I mean, it'd be like having the sales clerk at the local Best Buy on your podcast for whatever reason. But once they write their book, then they're an expert in something. They've written a book, and they become a big deal, just like Mo was saying. Yeah.
So I would love, because this is a great lead into my next question or kind of observation here. So if we're doing this, they've now used that book, like you said, Bill, as a way to then get on your podcast. It's an entry way to get into other places. So Bill, I'll just start with you first and come back to Mo. But what other ways have you seen, or tips or ideas for integrating that book into your business strategy? So what would you say with that? Have you seen, or how would you apply that into your marketing strategy? And let's just say promoting your business and such.
I've seen people use it as a leverage into their own course.
Mm-hmm.
Their coaching offerings if it's one-to-one,
Mm-hmm.
or a course if it's more than that. And that's kind of what I plan to do is use these books as the foundational work for this mastermind,
Mm-hmm.
and help people learn about ethical leadership and apply it in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
be able to move on to bigger and better things.
Yeah. No, that's great. One of what I have a book here that if you guys are watching the video, the communication codes, one that I use. You can actually take this assessment. We've talked about this in the podcast before.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually have I bought a whole case of them because I use them as a giveaway. If somebody's going to meet with me, wants to learn more about the resource that they have online, they could take the assessment. I have the book as an added value benefit to them, that they can come have that additional resource. And it's nice to have something physical. I did this last year at the end of the year with some clients because the book had just come out. I was meeting with them, so I actually gave them all a copy of the book at the end of the year, just as a thank you and appreciation. And so that's what I'm excited to be able to be with Mo and I be doing the book Superpowered Leadership coming out here later this year. Also, as I work with Mo and we do powerality and trainings and things of that nature. But Mo, what are some other things that we could think about if as we're going forward of, hey, you're writing the book now, think about how to leverage that book, like you were saying, Bill, to really so it's in alignment with your business strategy. And so what are some things there that we should be thinking about, Mo?
I think that's the most important part,
Mm.
is making sure that you're leveraging it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have it now. Now what are you going to do with it?
Right.
And that's another reason why you don't want to invest so much into the production of the book. If it's taking so much time for you to write, so much time for you to coordinate and do all the things, just by human nature, the amount of work and effort and energy that you've invested in that, to see the physical book manifest is going to give you a sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be like, I got the book. And you will have the book. But if you didn't have a strategy, if you didn't have a budget, if you didn't have an approach on how to use that book and leverage it,
Mm-hmm.
you will just naturally stop right there and just kind of be content, give it out to a few friends and show it off, take some pictures with it. That'll be it. You won't talk about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. When you look at major news media, Bill touched on this. How often do you see in major news media, radio, television, them introduce, and our next guest is an expert in, and then that's it? Or do they say our next guest is the author of, or our next guest is a best-selling author, which is happening most often?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
It's
author
not
or
just simply the expert,
right.
because you're just like, who says you're the expert? Well, my
Mm-hmm.
book says I am the authority.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going for public speaking, majority of speakers don't have a book. So when you put in that RFP to go speak at that conference and you give them a copy of your book, they're not going to read it. They don't have time. They're coordinating a whole event, but you're the only one that sends them a book. Guess what? Guess who they're looking at a second time? You got a number one. There's a couple people that send a book, but yours is the number one bestseller. Guess who's sitting at the top of the pile? Because it brings a factor of trust.
Yeah.
And so now you have this as something that, however you are attracting people to you, use it that way. When you go speak, give it. When you consult, give it. Or sell it even. You don't even have to give it away. Sell it.
Mm-hmm.
People come to you, hey, I'd like to know more about what you do. Sure. Best thing to do is go get my book.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're, if that looks like something that's interesting to you, then follow up with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Mo, I mean, this is something that you just sparked in my mind. Maybe if you're collaborating, like you and I are collaborating Powerality, there's ways that we can help support each other. We're on the podcast, finding those people in the industry that, for at least use my example of the AEC industry, there's some membership publications that I'm a part of, and then either advertising it or ideally even getting them to, hey, share that with their own email list. Hey, I just got this great book. How we can engage and find these I don't know. I don't know if like word influencer, but that's candidly one of the social media, right? Or industry leaders, like you said, Mo, being proactive and getting them to, support you, get that word out. I mean, obviously, a lot of times in books, you get what do they put at the beginning of the book, right? Somebody has some statement about how they read this book or how important this book was in the forward. Maybe you don't get people to actually write it, but at least promoting it. Have you talked a little bit about that, Mo?
Yeah, all of those things I think are important. That again is part of that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with the book? Who are you going to give it to?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to use it to help you in your practice? If you're going to go on podcasts, maybe give away a chapter of the book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. So I want to. I know we're getting close to the end of the podcast, so I want to come back to you, Bill, and just hear. We've talked a number of things here, from just the idea of getting started writing a book, going through this process of then the how and whatnot, and then we've talked about how to kind of leverage the book. I mean, there's a lot of different things here, and I feel like we could definitely go further. And so.
Oh yeah.
But what are some the key things that you're hearing, Bill, in this conversation, especially in the midst of writing your book?
Well, the big thing. Well, one of the big things I've already gotten past, and that's the get started. Just do it. The old Nike slogan. Actually, what's funny is it's the same advice I got when I was thinking about starting a podcast. I'd gone to an event, and there was a question and answer period with Kevin Smith afterward, and I asked him, what what should I do to make sure that people come and watch my podcast or listen to my podcast and that I become a success? He said, don't worry about any of that, just get started. It's the same thing with the book. Just get started on it. And then the second thing is much like it, get going on it. Like Mo said, it shouldn't take you forever to do it, because it's not going to be perfect. If it has to be perfect, then it'll never be finished. And that's how Toyota got into the car business in the United States. Was they put out a car, and then they improved it, and then they improved it some more until we got what we get today. So so just get it out there.
Just get it going. So we're going to look forward to book one, Bill. You're going to have to come back on the podcast. Give us at least book one, or chapter, even a chapter. I like that idea, Mo. You're like, here's the first chapter.
Yeah, giving away a chapter is that's not a bad idea.
Just to get it going, get it out there. I think you've given us a lot of great insights to think about, Mo. Definitely excited for us to get our first book out too, Mo, this year. And I liked also this idea of kind of begin with the end in mind, meaning like, where are you trying to go with this book? What is writing it? How are you going to leverage this book? Because like you said, if you do all this effort and then you write it and you're like, oh, well, what am I going to do here? Think about that. And then that's going to really get you, really help you grow the business. That's what we're all here about the Business Roundtable podcast, is how do you grow, expand your business, whether you're the business owner, where you're a leader in the industry, and talk to one of us here. You've heard some examples. There's a lot of, like Mo said, there's a lot of folks that do this type of work. Find somebody that it gels with you. They've got a strategy. You've heard some of the things that we've talked about. But Mo, just coming back as we're wrapping up here, just some key thoughts and ideas. And Bill, we really appreciate your input tonight. But Mo, what's some final takeaways here?
Man, get organized and get help.
Mm-hmm.
If you need help getting organized, do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it. There's all kinds of things. I think, solo entrepreneurship is always something that is going to cause unnecessary stress. We're not built to do all the things. Nobody's good at all the things. I am one of the few consultants and coaches that's multidisciplined. I'm actually an expert in multiple areas. I'm not an expert in all the areas. I can't do all the things. I might be versed in some of them, but my expertise is no one can do all of the things. So a lot of times people are feeling overwhelmed because they keep visualizing every step being done by themselves personally. Get help. Somebody knows how to do it well, and they enjoy doing it. Because half the time, the stuff we don't do well, we don't even enjoy. It's not like we enjoy messing it up.
Right.
So we hate every minute of it, and we're messing. Stop it. Get some help. Get some help.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and we're so grateful you're here, Mo, Bill. We're here to help you. Please reach out to us. If you felt that this was really helpful for you and you started to get the wheels turning and you're like, I never thought I could do a book, or how could I even incorporate that? And you felt like, hey, this kind of unlock some things for you. Please share this podcast, right? Like and subscribe. We all appreciate that. Leave a 5-star review. It would be so meaningful for us to help reach more people. We're just starting to scratch the surface. We're so excited as we're continuing to roll on. It's hard to believe, but Bill, I think you were early on in our podcast. We started in August last year, so we're coming up on a year of the Business Roundtable podcast. Almost
happy anniversary coming up.
You, Mo. We should have like a celebration. We try to get all of our guests back in because we've had quite a few.
That would be amazing.
We've got a lot of different topics coming up. We have a podcast, literally how to get started with a podcast, and doing that for your episode, because Bill's been a part of that too. We've got one talking about AI. We have one tomorrow that we are releasing on leadership transitions. There's just so many different topics that are really beneficial, helping you. You've got some amazing leaders, speakers here, and we're excited to have you following along on the journeys. So that's all I've got for tonight, you guys. Thank you, Bill and Mo, for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. And until next time, take care out there. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Have a good one. God bless.
You too.
All right.